When the birds chirp, we spring out of bed. A new day, right? A day to go out and be outstanding. Do excellent things that we have prepared for. All our planning just needs our strategy, which is going to birth successful results. We're raring to go so that people can know how excellent we are and how much knowledge we have garnered over time. And it's always great to have your company on the show, just like today, when we continue our conversation about drug addiction, drug abuse, treatment, and definitely rehabilitation. In his background feature, Francis tells us that United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime did a research and says that over 271 million people the world over have at one point in their lives or the other used drugs, and they range between the ages of 15 to 64. He also chats further with Sadatu Adamu, and she talks about drugs, the abuse, hope for the future, and the focus on rehabilitation. Francis will take it from here.
One of the emerging global public health issues is drug abuse. The recent World Drug Report 2019 of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime estimated that 271 million of the global population aged between 15 and 64 years had used drugs in the previous years. Also, it has been projected that 35 million individuals will be experiencing drug use disorder.
Drug abuse is the use of illegal substance. Now, it doesn't matter what you take, so long as you take excess or you take what is not supposed to be prescribed, then it is illegal. Now, the substance are of different categories. We have the heroin, we have the cannabis, we just have them in different forms, And then there's also the use of prescribed drugs, drug that you buy over the counter. If an individual is being prescribed with a particular medication, and then he gets used to it and becomes addicted, and then he starts using it, then it's abuse as well.
The story is not different in Nigeria, as the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has said that 14.4% of Nigerians are presently engaged in drug abuse, and this portends a negative trend to the future of the country. 27.7% of the 14.4% of those concerned were youth, and 1 in every 10 drug users is a woman.
It could be as a result of, I just want to try it. It could be peer pressure. It could be lack of parental guide. It could also be as a result of personality issues, especially in the social circle.
Nigeria is a diverse country with over 400 ethnic groups. Consequently, most societies do not consider the use of some drugs which do not produce overt behavioral changes as drug abuse. Government is not unaware of this challenge, as it has announced a ban on the production and importation of cough syrup containing codeine after a British Broadcasting Corporation BBC's documentary investigation into its role in an addiction epidemic.
There are specific areas that you go to and you find these things being sold there. So you would tell me that, does it mean that government does not pass around this place? If I see it every day, and I see a vehicle parked that looks like a government car, do you want to tell me that they don't see these things? They see it. They know. So maybe they need to do more. That's what I think. They need to do more. It's never enough. And ways to do more, to shut down those places. That's things, they sell those things openly. I've driven there so many times and they would call me and say, Madam, stop, stop. So you see, there's some people that can actually just want to taste it. Maybe because I haven't tried it. But doesn't mean that everybody who has passed that road has not been one day, called, and for whatever reason he just said, okay, let me stop. Because I tell you, to be honest with you, curiosity. A lot of people just want to, let me even try this thing out of curiosity.
Drug abuse has been a cause of many criminal offenses. Therefore, the need for collaboration among stakeholders cannot be overemphasized.
It is important that parents begin to check their children. Make sure that for every time they're back from school or while in school, check what they're doing, the friends they keep, the things they watch, who they see as their role model. Do all of those background check. It is very important.
Our focus on Weekend Deal today will be on substance abuse, rehabilitation and recovery.
Some say drug abusers and those who are addicted to drugs are a menace to society. But do you also realize that as members of that society, we can play an integral role to their successful rehabilitation? That's the thrust. Identify the problem, prefer a solution, and then all hands can really be on deck to work assiduously. Now we go to Lagos, and the talk in Lagos is about the field of practice. What exactly does that entail? Let's find out together.
The use of drug in quantity or by methods that are harmful to the individual is called drug abuse, while drug addiction is a condition in which a person is unable to stop using a substance or engaging in a particular behavior.
I don't like guys that smoke. I don't even think I'll associate with a girl that does hard drugs.
Some people always have this condition, substance abuse, because of self-medication, stress, anxiety, undiagnosed mental illness, depression, loneliness, trauma, peer pressure, recreation, amongst others. The number of individuals who engage in drug abuse is alarming. The most common drug substance abuse in Nigeria include painkillers, tramadol, tobacco, cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes, which can be taken orally, sniffing, or by smoking.
Those days I do it, it relieves the pressure. When the pressure is high and you feel like it will get relief, so I go and smoke.
But you hear that they say smokers are liable to die young.
Those are my people doing it that I even met them doing it. They didn't die young.
So
I've stopped for now. I've stopped for now.
Why did you stop?
I just stopped based on I'm spending much on it, so that's why I just caution myself. It's not because of anything.
The effects of this drug abuse lead to health problems like mental illness, cardiovascular problems, lack of productivity, criminality, and other antisocial behaviors, as well as loss of money. How can one dictate a drug addict?
One thing is that your communication, the way you talk to people, will be different. The person will withdraw from people, want to do things in his own way. What that person used to do, he will not do it. He will not be active. If it is in academics, he will drop. Relationship. He doesn't have stable relationship.
Most times, parents are the ones introducing the children to this thing. They do it in front of them. That's why we need to educate both parents, everybody come together. We need to help them. In all villages, it is crazy. I had more than 100 schools, more than 870 something in Lagos have written essay. I make them do this on drugs. You will see them saying these things so they know it. All they need is more guidance. And then when somebody is guilty already, don't push the person to the street. The person goes to corrupt millions. But if for every life we touch positively, we've touched 50 in disguise.
Are there any challenges to combat drug abuse, especially in densely populated areas?
Just last week, one of my units have arrested 2 tons that just came, 2.4 tons that just came into Lagos. from overseas, a Canadian lout. The same week, another wing of our maritime unit arrested about 2.9 tons. We just arrested a clandestine, we discovered a clandestine laboratory in Mende, Ikeja. A drug dealer have dedicated his own plot and they are cooking methamphetamine there. Of recent, we have raid hotels where you see 7, 10 number of whatever in a room, males and females, and taking drugs in the names of either celebrating their colleague's birthday or one thing or the other. It has always given us serious concern, and majority of those people, their parents are not aware. We also to sensitize those that are vehicle owners before their properties are given to drivers and other people. I mean, it's good if they bring them to us for a drug test.
Remember, substance abuse is dangerous to health. Avoid being tempted through peer pressure. Seek help for mental illness when need be. And above all, try and keep a healthy, well-balanced life. Communication with the right persons is key.
Communication with the right person is key. Now, identifying the right persons is also very critical. And from what we learned yesterday from Professor Ocholi and Dr. David Okoha, the right persons are amongst us in society. We welcome our guest, Dr. Hope Omeza is the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Vanguard Against Drug Abuse Rehabilitation Center.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
It's great to have you. And we're going down memory lane. It was quite interesting and intriguing. You said at 11 years, you started using drugs?
Yeah, true. I remember I was in church one day, one evening, and a friend in church told me, let's go ease ourselves as usual, just as teenagers we want to do. And then we stepped out of the church, went to an uncompleted building, and we're supposed to be easing ourselves. And then he presented this stuff, and that was how I began, you know, and I did that for about 2 years.
What was the stuff?
Yeah, initially it was cigarettes, then we moved on to marijuana, and what I refused to take alcohol for other reasons I don't want to mention now. So, but it got so bad that I would leave the house, and I would go to uncompleted buildings where people pass a excreta to even try to, you know, mix some funny shit, you know, very dry stuff.
So you can
to
help.
smoke. Yeah,
so, high.
it was just about getting at every means to get high. To get high.
What did the high do for you?
Well, the feeling of you feel good, you feel maybe you're doing something nice to yourself. Unfortunately, it's actually you know, putting yourself on the path of risk. And you did it for 2 years? Yeah, for 2 years. From 11 to 13? Yes, and then I remember I was actually caught. We went to my church again, had a wedding ceremony, and we went to the wedding ceremony. We left there. We couldn't wait for the ceremony to finish. We left there again to somewhere to take the stuff, and then somebody caught me. Somebody from the church who was just paroling, you know, caught me, and that was how the information got to my parents. You know, that's you were living with your parents at the time? Yes, I was. Do you have older siblings? Yeah, I do. I had other siblings. But nobody was aware? Nobody was aware. I used to say that as part of my advocacy now, because so many people feel that those who use drugs or whose children use drugs is because they didn't train up their children very well. Yeah, there may be some parental guidelines and lapses. But then again, for my mom especially, I remember for almost every week, she pays me surprise visits in school. And within the weekends, when you were in university? Secondary school. Okay. You know, so you were in the boarding house? No, I was a day student, but still she would come to school to check to be sure I was in school. And when she's doing that, was it because she noticed something? Nothing. She didn't notice anything. You know, it was just her, you know, manner of trying to check on her kids, and she was doing that for all of us. So, but somehow I started and she didn't know. Perhaps I started at a place or from a gathering where it was least expected. The church. The church. Now we've gotten the background, see how it started. Quite interesting. What you didn't set out to do, but definitely you are making an impact today. This is the FCT. What would you say we face in terms of drug abuse and drug addiction? Well, it's enormous. I mean, FCT is where I started from, and it's where I'm still working majorly now, even though we have volunteers across the part of the country that carry out programs for us. You see, in FCT, the problem is much. People really think that drug use behaviors are common among the poor. It's not so, even among the rich. It's just that it may differ where the poor decides to stay to take his drugs and where the rich decides to stay to take their drugs. So I have seen a mix of the classes in drug use behaviors. When we started earlier, we're going to places like Nyanya, into the bush from some farm areas where people stay, both young ladies, young boys. In fact,
I've been hearing these days about housewives.
Yes, I met pregnant women, at those places.
Getting high.
And one told me that, you see, I have actually reduced the dose of what I'm taking because of my baby.
Okay. Just hold that thought. We're going to Katsina now. And Dr. Musa Gambo wants to throw some light on the human cost. Remember, our focus is on substance abuse, treatment, and rehabilitation. There's always hope.
I saw my friends using it, and coincidentally I got myself into it. When I used it, I will feel comfortable, I will get sharp, my brain will boost. I even used it before I entered most of my examinations when I was in school. It affected my life because when I go high, I can't control myself. I can fight anybody in my family. I get it through my phone.
I take shisha, Indian hemp, and Refnol. We spice the shisha with different types of flavor. And whenever I take the drugs, I feel calm and I have no worries in the world.
A report by the United Nations office in Nigeria says that 14.4%, that is 14.3 million people between the ages of 15 to 64 years are drug abusers.
When the abuse is intense, some can cause damage to the brain and other vital organs. And the same way it can cause mental breakdown. Example of drugs that can cause mental breakdown include cocaine and amphetamine, and marijuana can cause some form of mental breakdown and psychosis, particularly people who have the risks of developing severe mental illness like schizophrenia.
One of the key impacts of illicit drugs and substance abuse on the society is the negative health and behavioral consequences. Drug abuse also puts a heavy financial burden on individuals and families, as the physical and health implications of drug addiction manifest.
There's association between developing the illness and excessive use of marijuana. Most of the mental health problems that are caused by these substances of abuse, they are reversible if they are addressed at early stage, and if the person is able to seek help from professional immediately.
Our jobs actually are kind of in twofold. We have what we call supply reduction. That's reducing the accessibility to substance of abuse, where we do by our arrest, patrol, seizures, raid operations.
The officers of the NDLEA engaged community leaders and traditional rulers in one of the many sensitization campaigns on how to identify and help.
We carry out what we call sensitization, awareness, and advocacy. That is our prevention aspect, where we engage all stakeholders. We talk about the youths, the community, the traditional rulers, the schools, the workplace, the community entirely. Then we talk about rehabilitation. So where they undergo counseling, rehabilitation, and reintegration back into the system.
First, it depends on the type of drug addict we have. Some our officers, if they go out for operation, after the arrest, when they come to the office, if the investigation reveals that that person is an addict, so he's a user, then they will refer him to our department. On coming to our department, the first thing we do drug tests. It is the drug test that will prove to us that this is the type of drug he's using. Then our counseling process started. As being the head, I'll look at the person and assign one of my officers to say, okay, you are his counselor. So from there, it's step by step. But during that, we are always trying to train him on how to avoid the drugs. That is one. Secondly, even after he lives here, how to control himself, no matter how his friends try to take him back to the drug use, he will know how to control himself. We have some vocational training that we used to give them, like shoemaking, perfume making, carpentry, tailoring, and the rest.
Addiction makes a person feel hopeless and trapped. It controls us and makes us forget who we used to be. But the path to recovery is a step towards gaining control of our lives once again.
You know that the reason why we're talking about this is that recovery is possible. And in some instances, there are processes that addicts or drug abusers will go through to be on the road to recovery through appropriate and adequate rehabilitation. We have been joined by Thank God Ocheho. He's a child development specialist.
Thank you very much for having me here this morning.
Interesting. Even though we're smiling, some of the statistics we're hearing are not very encouraging. In fact, they are disheartening. And it makes us wonder, you know, are we doing enough? But let's look at children. We've heard, in fact, Dr. Meza gave us some more information today that getting involved in substance abuse can start from anywhere. Religious groups in the church, in the home, in your neighborhood. But what is your experience like with young people involved in drugs? Are they quite a lot?
Yeah. Once again, thank you for having me on this show. Yeah, when you talk about substance use among children, there are quite a lot. Quite a lot of people don't know how to be able to help these young people, or even those that know, they don't have access to those that are taking
Sometimes it's even challenging to identify.
Exactly.
Some parents and guardians don't know that their children, their neighbors, their relatives are even involved in substance abuse or any form of addiction.
Yeah, because they are ignorant about it actually, and you won't blame them, because the level of awareness is, people are doing a lot in that regard, but again, it's still low.
It's still low.
So I feel that once we have a lot of people who are more educated in that regard, they'll be able to identify certain symptoms when of those that are involved in substance use.
Education, enlightenment, advocacy, and solutions are why we are here. Dr. Meza, tell us, we're looking at now what do we look out for? Because we're here today to talk about treatment, rehabilitation and recovery, because it is possible. You are a living example, and see how far you have come. We also do hear that once you've abused drugs or been addicted to any substance at any time in your life, there's the danger of getting hooked again sometime in the future. But first, tell us about symptoms.
Okay, for the purpose of educating parents, you know, I mentioned that there are early signs parents can observe in their wards. For example, you have a child who comes home before 6 p.m., before 4 p.m. You know his schedules in school, he should close by 2, he should be home by 3. But for whatever reason, he starts coming home by 4 p.m. He starts coming home by 6 p.m. He gets home, he used to eat this quantity of food, appetite has reduced or appetite has increased. Now, he used to stay in the parlor, play with his siblings or watch movie. He's now withdrawn to his room. And he said, Mom, I just want to rest. And he tries to avoid eye contact with you for whatever reason. He's somebody that, you know, we talk and laugh with you, but he's not avoiding conversation and eye contact. And then if you're able to look at his eyes, maybe the eyes are red or they are looking unhealthy, and you can ask questions. I also mentioned about parents checking their words in school. It doesn't matter whether they are boarding or day.
Be the police on that child's life, little matter how uncomfortable it becomes for them. You know, children, they resist that hands-on attention in these days. Thank God, what do you find? When you talk with, do you talk with parents as well as spend time with their children?
Yeah.
Parents, guardians, siblings?
Yeah.
What do they say? What do they share with you?
Yeah, so when I work with different parents, and one of the things that you find out is the fact that most times they are not even aware until it has become, you know, a severe issue.
A challenge.
You understand? So that's where most of them begin to get worried and now start coming for help. But you see, at that point in time, we can only be able to provide, you know, the support that we can. But
what kind of support do you provide?
So most times we be able to, if it's, because this thing is a spectrum, so if it's become so severe, we have to be able to recommend a rehabilitation center for them to be able to provide that service, because you have professionals who be able to do that. But if it's still at that early stage, there's support you can provide, because even parents, sometimes, like I always said, that sometimes children get to start taking drugs, could be as a result of rejection. So one of the ways this thing works is the fact that addiction does not just begin like that. It's a process.
Okay, but do you find that parents are in denial?
Yes, some
because
parents
now
are
going to
definitely
the reasons why they take it, like our discussion, you know, has progressed to another point now. Treatment and recovery for reasons best known to many children, because we can't identify every reason, but they are taking it. What are the parents saying? You know, did they notice? Some are even in denial that my child can't, it can't be, no, it's just a one-off.
Yeah.
And we know that the family is a big part of that person's recovery.
Yeah.
What about the age brackets? What age do you find issues like this? From what age does it start?
Like I said, most of it is during the teenage years, from 12 to 18. But now you begin to also see preteen, you know, taking this substance. Yeah. So I think that there's hope. I think the first thing is that let's even the parents create a safe space and let them be seen as safe themselves. Because when you have relationship with them, there are certain problems you will resolve. You understand? Just by having that relationship. So you'll be able to identify certain things like you mentioned. But once there is no relationship, it's also a major problem. Because most of them will feel rejected, and drugs, there's a kind of feeling they give to you when you don't get that feeling, that kind of love or attention from your parent or from your primary caregiver, that when you start taking drugs, there will always be that escape. So you start taking drugs and give you that kind of feeling, you understand? And you feel that, oh, this feeling that I'm having is something that I'm not getting somewhere. So whenever they are not getting that love, that attention, there's no relationship, they use that as a coping mechanism. And when you use that as a coping strategy, after a while it becomes habit, and that's where it graduates into addiction.
And sometimes we've also asked parents in our package, do your children trust you? Because you are saying, oh, I'm disappointed, how? But like he's just said, you did not create an enabling environment for your children to open up about what they needed.
You see, when Mr. Tangod mentioned the safe space by parents, you know, I was very happy because it's very important. I had this young chap, about 6-year-old girl, and she was already being abused. This goes beyond just drug abuse.
Yes.
She was already being abused by a neighbor. She did not find her parents safe enough to discuss that. Thank God it wasn't so bad before they found out. And the father asked her, why didn't you tell me? He said, Daddy, you will beat me if I tell you. Now, I have told parents, what's the difference between me and you? Why can't your children talk to you, and why are they talking to me? Now, because parents love their children. They do everything because of the enormous love they have for their children. But you see, parents sometimes are not cognizant of respecting their children. A father will call the child, so what is your problem? Let's talk. When the child finishes talking, he will now beat the child or verbally abuse the child. That, okay, so you mean when I was growing up, you know what my parents were doing to me? You are even enjoying and you are saying this thing. Parents must begin to realize that their children are human beings.
Children don't like that.
they are human beings that deserve respect. And so when you are able to talk to your children with respect, I'm not saying you don't correct them, you can be firm, but then let them know that you respect them. And when they see this, they can talk to you.
Okay.
You know, my mom wouldn't have noticed some of the things that, all this I mentioned, if we don't have that relationship. Okay. You know, and the communalism you just mentioned about is key.
Okay.
It was so much so that I was scared to go anywhere because they now know I use substance.
We'll come back and we'll continue. For now, we're going to Niger State, where we get to meet someone who says he's a sickler and he got addicted to prescription drugs, amongst other issues. We do know that getting addicted to substance or drugs, prescription or hard drugs, has negative consequences, because many of these people now are lured into crime. But for me now, we'll get to learn more.
My name is Abdurrahman Yusuf. Me, I am a sickler. A self-injection bring me here. I spent pentazocine and then started giving myself anytime. The injection don't finish. I just come, I don't have money. I'll tell my dad in school, they say we should buy this thing, we should buy this thing. I'm going to buy that injection.
Only we and cigar. Now the thing why they take with that. I will tell you, say make you no smoke that thing. That thing no good. That thing no good at all. A bad thing. If you smoke that thing, you pick yourself. If you keep person.
Mina, the capital of Niger State, is a vibrant city with a rich history and culture. But like many cities in Nigeria, it faces a growing problem of substance abuse and its criminal consequences.
Drug is eating deep in our society. Today, like I'm talking because I'm the commander in Niger State, I know the prevalence of drug 2 years ago, and I don't know how it is now. Do you know that some months ago there is a community here? It's just a road that divides them, but they don't agree with each other. The children, the young men, always they will come out macheting everybody, macheting themselves. Can that one be a good sign of a decent society? No. They do this under the influence of drugs.
Substance-related violence and armed robbery are becoming more common in Mina, putting a strain on law enforcement agencies and cities' residents.
Sometimes, out of ignorance, the society does not really want to understand how we do our things. They believe you arrest a person, you send him to prison. Sometimes you arrest, you keep him for counseling. Some people will come and say, this is my son, why is he undergoing this kind of a thing? But we have a duty to sanitize the society.
Few months back, I took a break from the office to get dinner. On my way coming back, some four boys attacked me and they collected my phone. Imagine, after collecting my phone, they still wanted to stab me. That led to struggle. As a result, I have a complete fracture on my lap. They were all smelling of weed. That is to say that they were under the influence of hard drug.
Rehabilitation and recovery are critical components of addressing substance abuse in Mina. However, there are challenges in providing access to effective treatments and support.
We are worried about drug abuse. We are not really worried about adults who abuse themselves, because they are abusing themselves. We are worried about their children. What does that do to a human being? Anything that affects your brain affects your totality. And most of the time it is the brain that is affected that results in what we see. Children that get into drug abuse, they lose mental ability, they lose attention span, they lose concentration, and therefore their academic performance becomes very, very poor.
The sales of illicit substances on the streets of Minna is a common sight, highlighting the road for effective regulation and control. Minna may be facing a growing problem of substance abuse, but by working together, we can address this issue and help individuals struggling with addiction to find a path to recovery.
It still comes back to all hands being on deck. We need to work together assiduously. It's a continuous process. We don't drop the ball at any time because the consequences are dire. And when criminals and criminality is prevalent, everyone pays a huge price. Let's go to Akure now, where the NDLA is, they are working assiduously and continuously to take patients for rehabilitation and focus on them to the point where they can fully and truly recover.
The menace of substance abuse has continued to be a source of threat to the future of Nigeria and the world at large, but stakeholders are attributing this social problem to many causes.
As part of my data that I'm collecting now to work upon later on is how drug addiction is practiced among the children of this nation, of this community. The problem of drug abuse here is even more complicated than it is nationally, internationally, because school children now are smoking cannabis.
Most of these children are not tame like we used to do in the past. And friendship, my friend is doing this, let me try it, is another problem.
Out of ignorance, they started by getting addicted to drugs. They don't know that the end will be that bad. In some cases, you see some of them first experimenting with the drugs that were categorized as the socially acceptable drugs, like alcohol and cigarette. So from there, once they started taking alcohol or cigarettes, you now see them graduate into other serious drugs. Some people, maybe because they were prescribed some prescription drugs in the hospital. In some cases, you see them, they don't go to the hospital again to get the prescription. They just go and get the drugs in the pharmacy or in the chemist, and from there they get addicted.
The devastating effects of substance abuse has also taken its toll, even on the communities.
It does not make the community grow. One, they don't see, when they are drug addicts, don't see things good in the community other than when they want to fight and here and there.
You see so many people, they are raping, they are kidnapping, they are doing so many social vices in our society. Even killing, assassination that we are all hearing, cultism, all these are as a result of addiction to drugs.
Efforts are being made to curtail further spread of substance abuse, as well as rehabilitation of those that are already caught up in this mess.
Start from the school and the nursery and primary schools together with the secondary school. That, if we can do that successfully, we'll be able to kill the problem from the source.
Every children come from a house, and in a community we have so many societies, we have churches, we have mosques, cooperate together to teach these people the effect of all these things and the end of it.
Drug is not irrespective of anybody. So we go to schools, we go to the motor parks, we go to the marketplaces, we go to our religious places, we go to the churches and the mosque, and then we showcase the hues of substance abuse. We show them clips. By the time they see the hues or what somebody is going through or what somebody had gone through, everybody will know that this thing is dangerous.
From our career there, we get to learn that peer pressure is one thing that contributes largely to many young people getting involved in substance and drug abuse. And that, once again, all hands must be on deck. The NAFDAC, NTLA, the community, the parents, the guardians, the neighbors, to ensure that the road to recovery is not so far away, that we bring these addicts, these patients close, and then seek ways to bring succor, to give them hope, and to help them. I'm talking with Dr. Omeza and Thank God Ogbeho, who is a child development specialist, as well as Dr. Omeza, who has worked with drug addicts for quite a bit. We're getting informed with some interesting stories. But what is key is that there is hope and many can recover. Tell us about the recovery rates in your experience.
The recovery rate for those who suffer drug use disorders, is very high when they get the necessary support, and then they get the necessary treatment and are able to be fully reintegrated. And because there are multitude of factors that influence the behavior of one towards drugs. People don't understand that addiction is a brain disorder.
We are seeing it now.
So we are seeing it
That's why we have some
superficially.
of them on the
We
streets.
just think it's behavior, and we don't know that. We don't want to think deeper that what is
But
causing
let's
this
talk
behavior is
solutions.
brain.
Someone is asking us from Borno State, Comrade Mustafa Ongala. He says, are there rehabilitation centers that truly work and put, he used the word addict, you say we're not addicts, they have a drug disorder, that truly help them to the path of adequate and proper recovery? Comrade Mustafa Ongala from Borno State.
There are rehabilitation
Let's talk
centers.
about recovery.
You see, statistics has it that over 40% of those who suffer from drug use disorder do not know where to go to. They don't know who to turn to,
Perhaps
and even
that's
where
why
to
we
go
are
to.
here.
Over 40%. Other percentage of them, they are not even informed. They don't want to change. They are still pre-contemplatory. But those who are not, who have passed that stage of pre-contemplatory, are not knowing where to go. Now, so we have rehabilitation centers, yes, but they are not enough. They are not enough. For example, the new leadership of the, I said new leadership. The leadership of the NDLA, General Bubamara, retired, has done quite a lot in ensuring and enhancing the drug demand reduction department of the agency. Now, what does that entail? It includes treatment. And we see last year or so, the government pronounced that we are going to cite 6 rehab centers in each geopolitical zone.
Is it done now?
Currently, 3 of that have been captured in the budget, in this year's budget.
So they've not
and
been
I'm aware
established
that there's
now.
been some foundation laying already for
So
those
there's
rehabs.
hope.
There's hope.
Okay.
And then again, the NDLA have some, small rehabs in some commands, and they attend to people. Last year, the leadership of the NDLA and some other organizations launched a free-to call center where you can call for drug issues, psychological issues, and even mental issues. And you get support.
Okay, but
and
hold that thought.
fair.
We're coming back.
Okay.
We need to go on a break now. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. We need to hear your experiences. We need to know your thoughts. What are you feeling at this time? Have you seen people who use drugs or who have drug and substance disorder? They're not addicts. Send your messages in so that we can discuss with Thank God and Dr. Omeza. Don't go away. You're watching Weekend Deal. Yesterday, we're talking about drug abuse and substance abuse, treatment and rehabilitation. Today, the focus is on substance abuse, treatment and recovery. Recovery is possible because all hands are on deck working daily to ensure that patients and people with drug disorder recover. We go to Sokoto now. There is more to learn from there.
Substance abuse affects a large number of people, but only a few receive treatment. There are a number of treatments available for people dealing with substance abuse.
They take different drugs. So the problem of class A
is different from problem of claim B or C. So it depends on that. Then it will now form a basis by which we will now start our intervention. The psychological consequences, the social consequences.
These clients manifest a similar problem, which counseling therapy was found to be an effective method for treatment.
Kidney will be affected.
Within a short period of admission, a lot has changed in the lives of these clients for the better.
Bringing in here, I've been able to make, an astonishing recovery, and I've really made, quite a successful withdrawal for the time I stay, and I've been able to rekindle my heart, my body, my social activities, my engagement with people.
Abdulrazak Shehu runs an NGO in Sokoto, where he has been advocating for rehabilitation of drug users.
After counseling, we will integrate them, help them to find jobs. So those of us who are qualified to participate in the counseling they do, we also do invite other qualified and experienced counselors to interact with the patient.
Aside counseling and detoxification methods, drug substitution is another rehabilitation alternative. It is a treatment procedure in which some medically prescribed drugs are recommended to replace the illicit substances. Malam Nura Atajiri has a different method entirely. His method is called drugs to fruit.
It's about quitting from drugs and taking fruit. I attach them with one Kabiru who is a fruit seller, living within them. I ask them, I give them some money and say each and every day they should go there. Instead of taking drugs, they should go and collect some fruit from him. Any kind of fruit they want, let him give them. Then from there, they started taking.
The trial of drugs to fruit substitution has proven effective for some drug users like Kasimu Muazu.
Ina iya shan shuta, ina iya shan magani na kwalba, ko kuma irin wanga abu da ake ce makwari ko vitamins. Duk waɗanda ina amfani da su sosai. Allah ya ba da iko, wallahi duk abin nan ina ra'ayi ne. Wallahi sai in wurin mai abadi abin abar lemu da kankana in to in sha kuma wallahi sai Allah shi jaye mal amalin. Sannu wallahi sai ga sallah na dawo masallata. Lahiya lo tsaya in sallah in roki Allah kaga ko shi jin daɗi na.
Ni dai gaskiya ko ga yanayin jikina sai na ga sauyi baya ga canji da nake ji. Mu mutane ma sun ganin mishi ko kana bilicin na saboda gwargwaro ni yelo ne ba fari ba yana haka kuma sai ga shi jiki ya sake dawowa yanda yake da.
Muazu may be drug free for now, but an idle mind must be kept engaged.
If you discharge a client and he has nothing doing, and he goes back to the same society or wherever, the possibility of him going back to drug and become even worse is there. So it is expected that we will follow him so that he will now plan something that he will be engaged doing.
While efforts against substance abuse and trafficking are intensified annually, more priority should be given to rehabilitation so that more drug addicts can receive appropriate and very necessary treatment.
It's amazing what people can do when they see the light of hope. Imagine using fruits. Dr. Meza told us about art, told us about writing. When the urge comes, you write. We go to Benin City, where the consequences of drug and substance abuse can be far-reaching. Dr. Loretta expands.
The consequences of drug or substance abuse is far-reaching.
When you become addicted to any substance, when you are not able to function without that substance, either you think functioning for good or functioning for bad, when that substance has taken a hold of one, that is drug abuse.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Just calm down. Calm down.
For different individuals who have passed through the path of rehabilitation due to drug or substance abuse, their experience may not be as easy as this 19-year-old who relocated to Benin City recently.
Drugs of whatever kind you had, I wanted it. I was addicted to escape from reality. My relationship with my mom and my family was gravely affected because I started lying. I started, staying out late. I started becoming very sneaky and very manipulative. Using affected my relationship with my daughter because I wasn't there. I was lost.
Leave me here! Leave me alone! My children are crying!
Luckily for us in this part of the world, we also have protective mechanisms, but we are no longer employing them properly. Do you know that our extended family system, where you just come out and say hello to people, you go to someone's house, you knock and they open the door for you, is actually protective against depression. And we know that depression is one reason why people will turn to substances.
Indeed, abstinence and maintaining a drug-free life may just be a daunting task as individuals reintegrate back into society.
The truth is we need to focus on prevention. Prevention is far, far cheaper, better and wiser than cure. And how do we focus on prevention? I'll tell you today. We need to go back to our homes. We need to go back to the families. We need to do a root cause analysis. Why are people taking substances in the first instance in Nigeria? Why is tramadol, cough medicine? In fact, recently I realized that people were sniffing methane from soakaways.
Authorities say more support networks to cater for the increasing number of persons needing further attention after exiting rehab facilities.
We're doing a lot in this regard, making sure that the youth are engaged, providing an environment in which they can excel. And if you look at the state governor, has been doing all of this in trying to build an entrepreneurial city, trying to build the economy of the state.
Our youths are the ones much more engaged in our business of these illicit drugs. Some of them even know the wrong thing. They know that these drugs are not good to their health, but they still go ahead to experiment with it because of the peer group pressure on them.
Undeniably, the burden of drug abuse has remained a public health concern as different stratum continue to battle for a drug-free society.
Physiologically, there are those of us who our receptors are actually at a low threshold to bound onto addictive substances. What other things in our societies are making people want to be high, making them want to escape? The first answer is stress. And the stressors are no jobs, the high cost of living. Transportation is now a problem. And you find out that when we are able to take care of a lot of these stressors, then the government itself would have put our population at a better state.
In Edo State alone, just within June 2022 to date, we have destroyed 67,000 acres of cannabis sativa. Presently, we have 418 cases in court, in which we are having conviction of 295 right now.
Though the recovery process for victims may seem challenging, hope, they say, is the basis for which all major changes rest as the battle against a drug-free society endures.
Say no to drug abuse!
There is always hope, but hope is more meaningful when you put action that will put the recovery process on a path where the hope really has meaning. Thank God. We're telling us about a treatment plan.
Yeah, so I was saying that when somebody who has been used to drugs and maybe comes for treatment, you need to be able to first build relationship. Relationship is key because in itself it's therapeutic. So which is why a lot of people don't know. It will be difficult for somebody to just come to you and just open up.
And tell you everything.
And tell you everything. But
You
when
must
you
build
have that
their trust.
relationship, that rapport, and build trust, then they can fully open up, because it is worth somebody tells you that you'll be able to identify, the problem and be able to fit
Bring
in your treatment
about a
plan.
solution.
So afterward, you're able to design a comprehensive assessment to
Indeed.
know what the actual problems are and how you'll be able to do your treatment plan. There are different approaches you can use depending on the individual. It's not just one way fit all. Somebody can have a specific unique. So this particular client, I want to use behavioral approach where you be able to use reward or some form of punishment or desensitization to be able to help the particular client. Or you could say, oh, this might require a cognitive approach where you have to change the thought, the belief system of that person regarding drugs. And there are other ways, which some you mentioned. We talk about counseling. There are just word therapy, talk therapy, where you talk to the person, try to talk to the person to be able to get out of this particular addiction that the person have gotten into.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes, ma'am.
Like, I know abroad, like we talked yesterday, when somebody has been on drugs at some point for maybe a year or months, they now take treatment. They do it for life.
Yeah.
Is it the same here in Nigeria? Did they come to you for a period, or they continue to seek treatment for the rest of their lives?
So it's a watch progression, because when you talk about recovery, it's the point when the person has gotten that he can now function normally. It's like having a wristwatch and you damage your wristwatch. You will now start fixing it until you take it back to the original state. So once you understand that this person has gotten to that point, there must always be a point you close out your intervention.
Yesterday we learned that prevention is actually the best cure. We can't deal, we go on a break. Thank you so much for being a part of our conversation. Dr. Hope Omeza, Managing Director of Vanguard Against Drug Abuse Rehabilitation Center. Thank God, Ocheho, a child development specialist. It's been great having your input on the program today.
Thank you so much.
We have been talking about drug abuse, substance abuse, treatment and rehabilitation. We have also talked about the road to recovery, and everyone agrees that there is hope. There is always hope because all hands will be on deck working assiduously to ensure that our friends, our neighbors, family members, colleagues, whoever they may be, wherever they may be, they truly recover. And it starts first with the way we address them. In the past, we addressed them wrongly as drug addicts. Today we learn that they have a drug disorder, because with the wrong language, we already verbally begin to ostracize them and stigmatize them. And that is not the essence of having a conversation such as this on Weekend Deal. Let's do better. Let's embrace them. Let's tell them every day that there is hope and they can do it with all our support. We've heard from medical experts and child development specialists, and we know that with their expertise, with our support, the road to recovery is closer rather than later. Thank you so much for your contribution, for sharing your experience with us on Weekend Deal. Let's do it again next time. From all of us here, it's bye-bye, and God indeed bless Nigeria.